Romanelli, the first ever episode of the Lineup Card Friends. As you know, Schullo and Romanelli, we switched things up a little bit last week. Last week was our last show as the Crosstown Baseball show covering the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs. And we have decided starting today to cover all of Major League Baseball, which is a great opportunity for us to cover all of the 30 MLB teams and talk to a variety of cool people along the way. Today, you'll notice that Romanelli is not with us. Romanelli is a little under the weather, so he's going to be on the IL for this week. But we do have a very special guest. But before we get to our special guest, let me share with you what today's lineup, what the lineup looks like for today. So today we have a special guest. Parker Kirk joins the show. Parker is a Red Sox fan, so we'll talk to him about that and give him grief later. And we are going to review his scouting report and learn a little bit about Parker. Secondly, we're going to discuss impactful trade deadline acquisitions. So those trade deadline acquisitions last week that is going to have the most impact for MLB teams down the stretch. And then lastly, we're going to make a selection of this week's hot hands. So something new as part of the lineup card show is every week, myself, Romanelli, and if we have a guest, we'll choose our hot hand. So which MLB player will perform the most or the best over the next week, much like you would in a lineup card, play your hot hand and put them in the lineup. So first, want to introduce Parker and welcome him in. Parker, how's it going?
What's going on, man?
Oh,
I was very excited when I've been hyped up for the last, I don't know, what has it been, a week almost since we talked, because I don't get to just sit down. I don't have very many friends that are baseball fans, so I don't get to just sit down and talk ball very often. So I'm on 11 right now. I'm ready to go.
I love that. We love on 11 because I'm going to tell you what, this 2023 season has been on 11 itself. I mean, and this is, I think, what inspired Romanelli and I to talk all MLB, because this has been a season like no other, and the trade deadline reinforced all of that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, when you think about things, there's a lot of changes that happened this year. I mean, we have things like more stolen bases than pretty much have ever happened in the modern game. We have the pitch clock, stuff like that. Everything's moving at breakneck speed, on top of the fact that this is potentially the most competitive that the AL has been in a while. Not that it hasn't been competitive before, but I think it reached really new heights this year. And then of course we've got the AL powerhouse teams that are still there and still kicking. No surprises really there, but yeah, no, this season's been awesome.
It has been. It's been a wild ride, and we're going to talk a lot about it because we're going to get into those impactful trade deadline moves today. But before we do that, let's talk about your scouting report, Parker. And the first thing I have for you is tell the fine people, who is your favorite team and why are they your favorite team? I kind of spoiled it earlier on.
Yeah, no worries. So I am a Boston Red Sox fan. I grew out naturally growing up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I would be a Red Sox fan, right? No, not at all.
There you go, right?
Both my parents are from New England. My mom grew up in Connecticut. My dad grew up in Vermont. So my dad specifically, my mom never really was into sports, but my dad's a huge Red Sox fan. And funny enough, so I didn't live with my dad right at the beginning of my life. I lived with my mom, my stepdad, and there are pictures of me up until I was 6 years old, 7 years old, wearing Yankees gear. Because up until that point, they had me super into the New York Yankees. But then my dad, he found out that was happening, and he was like, hold on. No, we got to talk about this. And so brought me over to the light side. And no, ever since then, it's been a straight up obsession with the Boston Red Sox. I would say, I always tell people, when I just throw out there, of the 162 games a year, I watch at least a third of 130 of them.
Mm-hmm.
The game's on my second monitor right now. So I can't turn it off. It's it's basically my personality for 6 months out of the year. But yeah, no, the Red Sox are as much a part of me as my name.
That's awesome. So much so that you actually do have your own Red Sox podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's in the early stages. I think I've done 6 or 7 episodes. But it is called Go Sox and On the John podcast. And On the John is my own little personal sports brand that I started a couple years back about. It started off with TikTok content. I've done a couple full length YouTube videos. but what that is it's just me trying to make sports, especially like the analytical side of baseball. I feel like nowadays people think either you're a numbers guy or you're just like a feel guy.
Mhm.
I personally like really believe that you can be both things at the same time, and that the numbers can be a little more consumable, especially when we've got things like plus stats like ERA plus and OPS plus and stuff like that that are really accessible, and they're broken down so they're super accessible. So I try to bring that aspect, and the On the John name just comes from I want you to be able to consume it real quick while you're like on the toilet in the middle of 2 meetings at work or something like that. So it started off with like minute long TikToks and stuff.
Relevant and convenient. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the goal. Ironically enough, though, it's gone less in it's less been TikToks and like short videos and stuff like that recently, and more been toward me doing the podcast, because it's very ironic to me that a 45-minute to an hour podcast is so much easier for me to, in the middle of my work schedule, like record a podcast on my lunch break and then really quickly just chop it up, and upload it at night. Whereas a TikTok, like a 1-minute TikTok, can take like 2 to 3 hours. So
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, no, that's awesome. I've listened to it, folks, and I highly recommend it. So if you are at all interested in the Red Sox or interested in baseball in general, Parker does a really good job. So follow him there. Next thing, favorite player, and I want to go past and present. Who are your favorite players, past and present?
So my favorite player
in the past, there's 2 of them, and they're like, it's weird to put it. They're not on the same level as far as historical relevance. But so Dustin Pedroia is my favorite Red Sox player of all time. He played middle infield. I grew up playing middle infield. His like short fight, like everybody counts me out kind of thing. Loved that. Huge clubhouse leader, which like growing up playing baseball, I always tried to be like a leader on my team and looked up to him for that. So he has been always like my favorite Red Sox of all time. But I would say historically, my favorite player in the past is Jackie Robinson. Jackie's awesome. I don't think I need to give him any more flowers. I think everybody's pretty up to date on how awesome he was. But yeah, no, every year, like one of my favorite hats that I have is I have the 42 with the Red Sox symbol on the side, and I wear that. And my dad's birthday is always around Jackie Robinson Day, and so we always go to the ballpark, and I'll wear that hat right around Jackie Robinson Day. So absolutely love of those 2 guys in particular as far as players from the past.
Nice. And then now, who are you jiving with on the Sox? Even if it's not on the Sox, who in the league are you just like, I gravitate towards this dude?
So a few names come to mind. On the Sox, it's without a doubt right now, it's Tristan Casas. The like young rookie first baseman that has just come up, and he's got like over an 800 OPS right now. And another one of those like quiet, confident kind of guys. Like he sits around and sunbathes right before games, but then also like comes out and is super like present and like accountable in front of the media. He's popular inside the clubhouse, but also just rakes at the plate. I'm really excited to see him. I think him and Rafael Devers are going to be the cornerstones, literally the cornerstones of that Red Sox team moving forward. So Tristan Casas right now. As far as MLB wide though, I will always and forever have a soft spot in my heart for Mookie Betts.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, him and Shohei. I mean, Shohei's I think everybody's favorite player.
Right.
Yeah, that's not fair. But Mookie Betts, like, I'm not one of the Red Sox fans that's like, oh, we should have kept him. I genuinely believe that he would have taken 1 less year for the same AAV if he was wanted to stay in Boston. I don't think he wanted to stay in Boston, regardless of his quotes. I'm not calling him a liar. I'm just thinking revision. Sure. Yeah. But Mookie Betts has always been just like this lightning in a bottle kind of guy for me. And that 2018 season was I was actually living in Japan at the time for the 2018 season. And funny enough, I had to take off work for a week so that I could get up at 7:00 in the morning and watch every single pitch of the 2018 World Series. And that's like Mookie's MVP year. Like that was everything to me. So.
Oh man, worth it.
Yeah,
absolutely. 7 days well spent. All right. So I don't know about you, Parker, but I know you, like me, just love to take in a ball game, but I'm also a notorious seat snob in that I need to sit everywhere in the ballpark. There's certain seats I like. What about you? Like, where's your favorite place to sit in the ballpark?
I think the easy answer is dugout seats, like right behind the dugout, as close as you can. Foul ball alley. Now, lately, like if you sit too close to the dugout, you're not going to get a foul ball because of the netting, really.
Sure.
But I love dugout seats. I got dugout seats for like $13 a piece. Back when I was living in Massachusetts, there was a Tiger series, a 4-game Tiger series. I got to go see Miguel Cabrera and the Tigers play against the Red Sox 4 straight days, like 4 rows behind the dugout. It was awesome.
Nice. Nice.
Loved those. But the 2 unconventional seats that really surprised me were one time I got seats about 5 rows in front of the Green Monster on the wall overhanging the field. Those were awesome. That was actually on Marathon Monday in Boston. So the 11 a.m. game.
Oh, okay.
That was really fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
Earlier in the year, I went to an Angels game, Angels Royals. The Angels, it was the most Angels game of all time. Trout hit a home run, Ohtani hit a home run, Renfroe hit a home run, and they still lost.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, but I sat actually third deck, like 10 rows from the top, right behind home plate, though, like a little off to the left of home plate. And those seats were incredible. That was really and they were super cheap. I couldn't believe that, like the experience from that seat was so good. But yeah, no, I would say those 3. I know I keep giving multiple answers, but
no, that's great because I could talk about this for hours, just the seat thing. Like I tend to be the guy where I prefer exactly what your last one was, sitting behind home plate in the upper deck, because when you're watching a game and you can see everything just right in front of you, the whole view, all the field, how guys are aligned on the field, at least the outfield guys, because there's no shift infield anymore. But that's just the most pristine view in the world for me, is that upper deck behind home plate view.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Caught me off guard. I thought so. One thing, I recently moved to Southern California. I've already name dropped 3 different places I've lived in the last.
No, you're quite the traveler there, Parker.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, no. So I live in Southern California right now, and within the first couple of months of moving here, I was like, I want to go to every ballpark in California, which is not as easy as it sounds, considering half of them are down near where I live, and half of them are 8 and 9 hours away up in the Bay Area. So I've been to Dodger Stadium. I went to Dodger Stadium on Jackie Robinson Day. That was one of the coolest, most emotional experiences I could have ever been at. His granddaughter was there. It was awesome. And then I also went to Angel Stadium. That was really cool. But I haven't had a chance to go. I missed the Red Sox came in town to play the Padres, and I missed that series. So
you got to get that.
I'll have to get them next year. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, a couple things left on our scouting report. Number 1, go-to ballpark food. If you're sitting in your seats, what's your go-to?
It's a hot dog.
Hot dog. Quintessential. Beautiful.
Yeah. I'll eat. So I'm going to keep going on these tangents here. I grew up about 10-15 minutes from now it's the Orioles AAA team, the Norfolk Tides. Yeah. And so we would go there all the time. Maybe probably like 10-15 games a year. But one thing they did was turn back the clock night. All the players would wear old-timey uniforms, but the fans it was 1 quarter for a hot dog, 1 quarter for a popcorn, and 1 quarter for a soda. And I think I ate 9 or 10 hot dogs that night.
And a whole $3 later.
I know, right? Yeah. I was really just breaking the bank that night, but it was good. It was fun. I love a good hot dog in a ball game.
That's perfect. And then lastly, to wrap up your scouting report here, I mean, think about all that you've experienced with the game. I mean, what's your favorite thing about the sport? What's your favorite thing about baseball?
So like we touched on, I've traveled around a lot. I've lived in a lot of different places for work. And one thing that has always been, it's going to get me emotional. One thing that's always been a constant in my life is the Red Sox. Like, whether it's I'm living on the East Coast, game starts at 7, or I'm running in the door from work, game starts at 4 out in the West Coast, whether I'm in Japan taking PTO so that I can watch the World Series, I've always been able to call my dad during a game and he's sitting on his couch watching the same game. I remember in 2013 when the Red Sox won the World Series, in 2018 when the Red Sox won the World Series, I called my dad and we just basically cried on the phone to each other. And then in 2007, I was sitting in the living room with my dad. We were both standing and screaming at the TV as the Red Sox won the World Series. Like, me and my dad's relationship like around baseball is my favorite part about baseball. We've been able to really, really bond about what's going on the ball on the red ball field when the Red Sox are playing specifically. And that's been the thing that like keeps me going. Like, I mean, my dad and I just really share a really nice bond about the game.
That's awesome. That's really powerful. And I'm sure many fans out there have the same thing, going to the ballpark with their dad. I mean, there is a very special relationship, and that could happen with your moms, it could happen with dads, aunts, uncles, whoever it is. But there's something about, a young boy going to the ballpark with his dad that is powerful. I love that. All right, folks. Parker is here to talk about trade deadline acquisitions, and that's going to be the bulk of our conversation today. Now that we wrapped up his scouting report and know a little bit about Parker, this trade deadline, Parker. Let me just set the scene with this trade deadline, because this was unique, because we, for the first time ever, saw a trade deadline where you had all but maybe 3 teams actually competing for a playoff spot midway through the season. And that's like nothing we've seen before. We have the market was just flooded with buyers. We had sellers that didn't even really want to sell that much themselves. I mean, the only big seller was probably the Chicago White Sox, and we'll talk about them. But what were your impressions just overall about how different this deadline was compared to years past?
So it's so crazy to see, since the expanded playoffs took place, how different the trade deadline has been. Because I remember like back when, the world was, 8 playoff teams, and you had to be one of the top teams in your respective league to make it into the playoffs. The trade deadline was much easier to read. You're within 3 games, you're probably buying. You're outside of that, you're probably selling, because you're trying to beat, what is that? It's 14. You're trying to beat 11 other teams,
right,
to make it into that playoff spot. So the point remains that, like, a lot of big name players used to change hands like all the time. And I'm talking about superstars. Like, I remember, what was the big one? I had it on ahead of my hand. Anyway, there used to be much bigger trades. Chris Sale was the one that I was thinking of. Chris Sale coming to the Red Sox was like, oh my God. And I don't think that was necessarily a deadline deal, but still it was like, oh my God, we are contending.
I remember, and you talk about, let's go to Red Sox here for a second again. I remember the big trade of the deadline. I believe it was at the deadline when Nomar Garciaparra went to the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah. Now I'm going to, what's the opposite of dating yourself? I'm about to do that. I was 9 when that happened.
I probably was what? I think I would have been 13 or 12 or 13 or 14, somewhere in there.
Perfect age for that.
It was, right. And of course, the young baseball fan, I at the time, I was Chicago. I followed both teams, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to practice with my wristbands and I'm going to get to bat and do this shindig. And I was all excited about it. But that's a prime example. And you said it perfectly. Like, you went into every deadline knowing, man, this is going to be like a superstar for a superstar type of trade. You're going to see that. This time, it was very hard to read.
Yeah, no, 100%. We saw a lot of, like, I don't want to assign tier. Like, I don't know if any players are listening to this podcast. I'm not demeaning you or anything when I say, like, there are a lot of second tier guys that are traded, but I think it's almost like, I hate the term Moneyball because it's thrown around so much nowadays, but it's almost like the Moneyball trades where it's like, this guy fills this hole in my lineup. I don't have a corner infielder who can hit against lefties. And, like, we're getting those kind of trades so much more often now.
Right.
That I think, like, back in the day, I'm going to keep being so fragmented with my thoughts, but back in the day, you would go get yourself a top of the line starter. You would go get yourself a number 1 or a number 2. These days, the razor's edge is so thin between an 85 win team making it in and an 84 team not making it in, that you're trying to go get your 4th or 5th starter. And I feel like the 6, 7, 8 hitters in the 4th and 5th starters, those are the guys of the impact trades nowadays.
Absolutely. And having said that, it is changed, I think, the way we talk about the trade deadline. And I almost welcome that, because for years it's always been, okay, well, this side's going to be the sellers, this side's going to be the buyers, and we can extrapolate from there. Quite frankly, I don't know that the term buyer and seller really fits with the landscape right now, because there are going to be teams that in the past, they wouldn't get anywhere 3 games out and having, ending the season with 80, 82, 83 wins. Now I can do those small reinforcements, those small patches here and there where I can still stay competitive year to year, which is exactly what the purpose of expanded playoffs was supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it gives way more compelling baseball to watch in September. Like there are so many teams that are like, right now, the Red Sox are playing a series against the Kansas City Royals. This is a must-win series. We just got. Thank you, by the way, for wearing the Blue Jays hat because we just got swept in terrible, embarrassing fashion by the Toronto Blue Jays. And like if we had swept the Blue Jays, we would leapfrogged into a wild card position. Now we're 5 games out. We have to we have a series against the Royals and a series against the Tigers. We've got to sweep them, basically, both teams back to back. Otherwise, we're really outsiders looking in. And it's not like it's going to be like a, payoff and investment kind of situation because the Red Sox didn't, again, for like the 3rd straight season, really didn't do much of the trade deadline at all.
Yeah.
At least not moves that impact this year, I would say. I'm pretty excited about the future of the team, but.
I share your thoughts there. I think the Red Sox are a prime example of other teams where we talk about these little kind of additions to teams, those 2nd-tier guys, but this also pushes teams to really have some forethought into how deep they want to go in their seasons. And I say that meaning you can get something at the deadline and get into the dance and get into the postseason, but it's going to force teams to be aggressive because you can get into the postseason, but to go deep in the postseason is a different story. And so I'm interested to see these teams that maybe get in that wild card series, but vastly underperform based on other teams they're going against, that they just haven't made that leap. And teams are going to be backed into a corner to make that leap and be more aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely. There's I don't want to get into naming like individual trades because I have a feeling these are going to come up when we start talking about that.
Oh yeah.
But there are some moves that were made like galaxy brain executives. The chess match that executives play with each other is one of my favorite parts of the game now, which until I would say this year really wasn't something I was super interested in. But like I can't believe some of the really good moves that some of these guys made and some of these teams made, and fans should be excited moving forward of some of these teams.
They absolutely should, and it's a great segue to start talking about some of those more impactful trade deadline moves. And so what Parker and I have done is we're going to go ahead and take turns talking about our top 3 impact deadline acquisitions. Now, the way I kind of did it, Parker, was I kind of looked at these trades and I said, okay, what 3 trades have the most impact for at least one of the teams? If I can get it for 2 teams, that was a plus, but which trades were going to impact the club in 23 and maybe even beyond? And so what I'll do is I'll kind of hand the floor over to you. You're our guest. Why don't you start with your first trade that you saw as a huge impact?
So I'm going to start. I have them ranked 1, 2, and 3. I'll start with number 3.
Okay.
My number 3 best highest impact trade is actually, I don't know if this is flying under anybody's radar, but I have Tommy Pham to the D-backs.
Ooh.
And I don't know, and I'm going to pull up his baseball reference sheet. But Tommy Pham is one of, I think, the most underrated players in baseball.
Wow.
Just for like a few reasons. Number one, he's incredibly consistent when it comes. He's having a 1.1 WAR season right now. For Tommy Pham, that's a really good season. Like that's an impact trade.
Correct. I see what you mean.
Yeah, so I'm looking totals right now. So he in 83 games this year, he's hitting 256. His OPS is a 788. Like he's a 118. He's a 118 OPS plus. Like this guy's an above league average hitter. He's doing the thing, and to bring that onto a Diamondbacks team that is clawing to become relevant. Like this is the first year we've mentioned the Diamondbacks in a competitive sense in more than a decade.
Yes. I mean, Pham is one of those guys where, you mentioned that he's having his OPS plus over 100 and he's having a solid season. I mean, this is a guy who, for the last 3 seasons has been very much below average, right? I mean, this is a guy who's been trying to kind of reestablish himself after a really strong 2021, really strong 2018 and 2019. He seems to be one of those guys that when he has it, he really has it. But when he doesn't, which just tends to not, and he hasn't
Yeah.
had it for quite some time. So it's very interesting. You mentioned Tommy Pham. The Diamondbacks are a team that, again, when we keep bringing it up, improving on the margins. This is a marginal improvement that with the rest of their lineup could be just that kick in the gear that they maybe need if Pham's going to continue on the streak that he has been on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
It was part of that big Mets fire sale, which I have so many thoughts about that. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Oh, we'll get into that, my friend. All right, I'm going to use the same strategy you did. I'll start with my 3, and we'll go to 1. My 3 is going to surprise you. My 3 is the Astros acquiring Justin Verlander from the Mets for minor league outfielders Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford. So, in this deal, obviously the Astros acquired old friend Justin Verlander, who played with them obviously for through 2017 through 2022. People, I mean, let's take stock of this for a second. In those years he was with Houston, we're talking 2 Cy Youngs, 2 World Series, and his 3rd career no-hitter. Okay, talk about a hell of a couple years. Number 1. Okay, number 2, they gave 2 prospects to the Mets in this deal. Gilbert is their number 1 prospect. We have Clifford, who is their number 4 prospect. And prospects be damned here. I want to talk about the real, I think, bugaboo about this trade is all the money that exchanged hands going from the Mets to the Astros. Now, I don't even know where to start with this. And I want to break it down for everyone because it's just mind-boggling. Now, the Mets, gave money to the Astros to cover a lot of Verlander's deal. So the rest of Verlander's deal is $58 million that's owed to him for rest of 2023 and 2024. And he also has a 2025 vesting option. And if it vests, it is for $35 million for 2025. Now, what the Mets did is they gave the Astros $35 million for 23 and 24. And then if that option vests in 25, they cover half of the $35 million option. So all things considered, Houston's paying $40.5 million for Justin Verlander to pitch for them. The Mets are paying $52.5 million for him to pitch with the Astros. It blows my mind.
If I had looked at it's okay, put your Astros hat on real quick. If I had looked at you at the end of last season and said you can have Justin Verlander, we'll take him away for the first 4 months of next year, but you can have him for the second half of 2023 and 2024 and 2025, and you only have to pay him an AAV of $15 million. Would you have taken that deal?
Apps all day and twice on Sundays, every day and twice on Sundays. I mean, I'll tell you, and this is what blows my mind. So let's get back to the main reason why I even put this on my top 3 is objectively, this is huge for the Astros. Objectively, you're bringing in a guy who is established in that organization. I mean, you should have seen the tweets, the threads, the X's, the Zeets, whatever you want to call them, all the things from all the Astros players who just thrilled to have this guy back in their clubhouse. And you can make some arguments about his secondary stuff. You look at kind of the swing rates on his fastball in general. It's dipping a little bit as he gets into his what is age 39 or 40 year now. I mean, that's going to happen, but the fact of the matter is this guy is still Justin freaking Verlander, and he's going to shove in the postseason, and the Astros need to solidify that rotation into the playoffs. So I think this is a great move for the Astros, great little jolt into their rotation for the remainder of the year. But I'm still stuck on when you look at the Mets and the fact that Steve Cohen is literally paying $52.5 million for 2 prospects. I don't know how that's a sustainable way to run your baseball operation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess it's sustainable when you're like Bruce Wayne and just spend all your money on all the things you want and need and desire. Justin Verlander first of all, I have a very soft spot in my heart for Justin Verlander. I grew up 10 minutes from Old Dominion University. My mom went to Old Dominion University. He's from Old Dominion University. Him and Ben Verlander.
Love it.
So, but Justin Verlander, I pulled up his baseballs because I was curious
because he's always been the spin rate king. Like everything that he throws spins faster than anybody else
anything anybody else throws. His fastball spin rate's still in the 86th percentile. His barrel percentage is still in the 80th percentile. Like I can still get it done. Like
absolutely,
he's 40 years old and he's signed through his age 43 season.
Wow.
Like, and he's still pumping 98.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty nuts.
And you look at the two pitchers the Mets have between Scherzer and Verlander. I pick Verlander 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, same. I think I picked Verlander back in 2013, and I still pick Verlander in 2023.
Absolutely. So I don't know what the hell's going on with the Mets. They're just paying money left and right for guys that are not going to be in the majors anytime soon. So good on them. Steve Cohen will go ahead and have another $500 million payroll, all things considered. But that's my number 3. I thought that was a fun one.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that that's your number 3 because I think that's easily a lot of people's number 1. But as far as trades that make a difference, it's not the most difference-making trade in my opinion.
Absolutely. Surely.
Yeah. Good one. Good one. So my number 2 trade is interesting because big names were exchanged. But it's actually 2 trades. I just want to go over the Marlins trade deadline as a whole. That's going to be my number 2 trade. Because the Marlins added Josh Bell and Jake Berger. And you're familiar with Jake Berger.
Yes.
He's an absolute animal. He destroys the Red Sox, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But Jake Berger joining that team, and Josh Bell was swapped 1-for-1 for Gene Sakura, which if you'd asked me at the beginning of the season if that was going to be a trade that took place, I would not have signed on for that.
Oh, sure.
But the Marlins just became a really solid ball club. Josh Bell with that switch hitting bat is always going to do what he's going to do. And then Jake Berger batting from the right side of the plate. I think that they did more than just fill that Gene Segura lineup spot, especially because he's not having the best season in the world. And the Marlins just became contenders for a wild card spot.
They did, and I'll tell you what, adding Jake Berger, I will admittingly, folks, for those of you who don't know, I'm the White Sox guy and I'm a White Sox fan. And Berger, it was the only bright spot this season watching him his at bats. I mean, the sound of the bat off of the ball off of his bat and the exit velocity he got on some of these pitches, it was absolutely remarkable. And the Marlins were lacking that right-handed power bat in their lineup, and they got it in someone who's going to play every day at third base. And he's not going to give you the best defense. He's serviceable, he's average, but give me 25, 30, 35 home runs and I'll deal with your average glove. So, and that's what the Marlins got in Berger, and they got a guy who his story is amazing. I don't know how much you've even got read into his story. I mean, the guy ripped.
I don't.
The guy ripped his Achilles twice in the minors. I mean, he was drafted. Yeah, he was drafted in. Let me remind myself here. He was drafted in 2017. He didn't make his major league debut until 2021. Okay, because of all these injuries, and we're talking injuries, depression. I mean, this guy had a rough go of it to get to the show, and to see him
debut till 25.
Well, yeah, 25. He's an older rookie. I mean, this guy has gone through so much, and to see him succeed and to follow his career the last few years has been an absolute blessing. So I was bummed to see him leave the Sox. I know why they did it, but the Marlins got a good one.
Yeah, Marlins got a great one. And I mean, and of course you can't, one thing you can never count Jake Berger out is his speed. He does have a stolen base this season.
Okay, so it's so funny that you say that because I'm gonna look it up. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. I'm gonna bring it up because I think his sprint speed is actually ridiculous. Like, and you'd be surprised. Right, yeah, it is. It's insane. His sprint speed is 71, folks. 71. Baseball Savant, 71 percentile is his sprint speed. You believe that?
For a big boy third baseman putting 30 balls in the stands every year?
But I'll bring you to this, folks. Not only is he 71 sprint speed, but what Parker and I are talking about and what's the most impact you get with Berger is that max exit velocity, 100 percentile.
Yeah, there is literally nobody hitting the ball harder than Jake Berger. And and not only is it's not just a when he connects kind of thing. Like I kind of feel like Giancarlo Stanton brings to the table. It's like, he's going to strike out a ton, which Jake Berger strikes out a ton.
Sure.
But he also has a 98. He's in the 98th percentile for barrel percentage. When he swings, he's connecting and he's hitting it harder than anybody else.
Absolutely. And I will take that bat. Like I said, if you're balancing it out with a lineup like the Marlins that have a Luis Arias, who you know is going to get on base at a really solid clip. I mean, give me a guy like Berger in the middle of the lineup. I can afford the strikeouts. I can afford what have you. Wow. I mean, I'm very impressed with the Marlins pickup. I'm almost surprised that they didn't even push more chips in and add even more to their lineup, but they did well with what they could, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think they did. I think if they went any further, you run the risk of like having to deal Yuri Perez, and I think that you
Oof.
never want to do that. I don't know that you ever want to trade Yuri Perez. I think he's got too bright of a future. So, no, huge impact from these two guys. And we didn't even give Josh Bell any flowers. He's always
No.
been Josh Bell. He's good. He's very good baseball player. That switch hit bat, I think, is just one of the cooler, like, especially in a day and age where like people aren't switch hitting anymore.
Yeah.
I think he's a sneaky good 163 OPS plus since he joined the Miami Marlins, by the way.
Wow. I mean, and Josh Bell is one of those guys, and I want to make sure we give him his due here because he's like Berger. I feel like Kim Ang in their front office was looking for guys with that exit velocity because he also is max exit velocity 92 percentile. He's walking a ton this year. He's in the 83rd percentile for walk for based on ball percentage. I mean, this guy is one of those guys that I think, unlike Berger, has a little more on base percentage, and he's going to get on base a lot of the time too. So I'm excited. I'm glad you brought up the Marlins because it's one of those teams that I think I and many fans always forget about, but they're exciting to watch. They become more exciting to watch.
Yeah, 100%. You get rid of that ugly home run statue, and everything goes right for your.
That's exactly. And then the busted ass fish tank behind home plate.
Busted fish tank, and then also Marlins man and the jerseys. There's a lot going on down in Miami. I don't think anybody's following it, but there's a lot.
There's some weird juju down there, folks, but it's all better now. I love that. That's a good number 2. All right, my number 2. This is worthy of a good discussion. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by this one, but I have my reasons. Dodgers acquire pitcher Lance Lynn and relief pitcher Joe Kelly from the White Sox for outfielder Trace Thompson and minor league starting pitcher Nick Nastrini and relief pitcher Jordan Leisure. Okay. I know you're like, oh, he's a Sox fan. Of course you picked this one. Listen, all right, everyone calm down. Number 1, I want to talk about the Dodgers for a second. Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly, if you're just looking at what they've done this season with the Sox, doesn't look pretty, okay? Lance Lynn had, with the Sox, a 6.47 ERA. Joe Kelly had a 4.97 ERA out of the pen, okay? Now, these two guys, if you look at their secondary stats, pretty good. And I do think the Dodgers are one of those teams that they look at that and they see, okay, what can I do to take this guy, kind of tinker with him? Can I get him where I need him to be? And I think what the Sox got, or what the Dodgers got in Lynn and Kelly, were two quintessential change of scenery type of guys, and especially with Kelly, who's familiar with the Dodger organization. That was an easy pickup for them. And quite frankly, you look at the Dodgers, why this is a high impact deal for them is this is a much needed innings eater in Lynn that they need right now in a Dodgers rotation that has just been injury bug bitten all year long. And I mean, they've been relying on rookies like Michael Grove, Bobby Miller, Julio Urias is having a down season. I mean, this team to have gotten this far with the issues they've had in the rotation is quite frankly really surprising. And if they're going to go deep in the playoff, they need someone who's going to give them 6 or 7 innings of solid baseball. And Lance Lynn, I think that's where they came on top in this trade.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I actually have a theory about this trade that I don't think it's a hot take by any means, but like you said, that Lance Lynn is like the name, like Lance Lynn's who they were going to acquire. And I want to say Joe Kelly was kind of the throwing piece because I want to say he's very well paid for a relief pitcher. So it's some salary dump. But also the Dodgers have the benefit of bringing back one of their like mascot type players, one of those guys that gets the fans going. Like when Joe Kelly's coming into the game, first of all, I've been to games Joe Kelly pitched in when he pitched for the Red Sox. The guy's a trip. Like he's fun.
Yes.
When he comes out and he touches the mound, like it's a good time. And then he did, he's got the pouty face, a moment that he had with the Dodgers and stuff like that. So he is a Los Angeles Dodger, and those fans love him. So I think that that's kind of like the perfect scenario for the Dodgers is to get this guy. I don't think any Dodgers fans were like, yay, we got Lance Lynn, to be honest, because innings eaters don't get their flowers. But when you tie it together with getting Joe Kelly, I think they get super excited. I don't want to sleep on what the White Sox got in return because Trace Thompson is not nobody. He's somebody, and he's a good baseball player. First week of the season, he hit 3 home runs in one game. You're not going to get that power over an extended period of time. but Trace Thompson's a good ball player, and we saw it in the WBC. And I have a feeling we're going to see it at the major league level. The guy's the brother of Klay Thompson. The family's athletic, right? Like
Yes.
he's going to be a good ball player. And I think he's going to be with you guys for a good amount of time. I think he's got like 4 or 5 more years of control. So be excited, I think, on the White Sox end of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, Klay Thompson was brought in in this trade for one reason, and GM Rick Hahn said it himself: is they, as we all know, if you're a baseball fan, you've heard what's going on in White Sox town for the last 48 hours. It's kind of a clubhouse shit show right over there right now.
Yep.
And so Trace Thompson, admittingly by Rick Hahn, was brought in as a clubhouse guy who has a great clubhouse presence and is a leader. So we all know that to be Trace Thompson. He's going to come in here, I think, have a positive impact on this clubhouse. But if you look at the 2 pitching prospects the Cubs got back in this deal, or excuse me, the White Sox got back in this deal, we have starting pitcher Nastrini and then relief pitcher Jordan Leisure. Now, these 2 pitchers are kind of fulfilling a big need for the Sox, and something they addressed all over the trade deadline was building out their pitching staff in their upper minors, particularly AA and AAA, that they've just been really, really short on for the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years in their system. So they're doing what teams have been doing in these rebuilds for years now, is let me stock up on the pitching first and shore that up before I go ahead and get those position players a la Cubs 2014, 2015, where they had a team of bombers with no developed pitching. So they're learning from their mistakes. And I think this is a great trade for the White Sox to be able to really bring in top prospects from a starting pitching perspective. I mean, Nastrini is number 6 in the LA system, and he was traded over. And right now I think he's sitting at number 7 or 8 in the Sox system. So I'll take that any day of the week for 2 rentals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 2 rentals. And then also, do you know what level the starter's at? What level in the minor?
Yeah, he is going to be pitching at AA.
Oh my God. So that's even better. Not only is you can make the jump as a starter from AA.
Oh,
you can do
absolutely.
That happens all the time. So you can get spot starts from him. That's somebody that can contribute tomorrow if you needed him to.
Correct.
And also, we saw at this trade deadline how valuable controllable starting pitching is. Even if he never throws a pitch for the Chicago White Sox, you guys have him that you can then deal him and get something that you can use more, right now if you need to next year.
Absolutely. Overall, I really like this trade a lot. I don't think anyone's jumping up and down about it, but when you check under the hood, there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, same. I agree.
All right. What's your number 1? This was the one that you were like, man, this is most impactful. What was it for you?
Okay, so Red Sox fan, AL East fan. I think the AL East is in a position that not a lot of divisions are in baseball at the moment, where it is super competitive. Every single team's above 500. Like, you really, especially when you look at like the central divisions and stuff like that, you see how non-competitive baseball can be. Right now, the AL East is incredibly competitive. And the surprise in that division this year, there's really been 2. It's how good the Rays were and how good the Orioles are right now. So I think that my most impactful trade at this trade deadline is actually Jack Flaherty getting traded from the Cardinals to the Orioles. Because did I just steal one from you?
No, I love that. I was debating between that one and the one that I picked, so I'm glad you picked this one.
Cool. Because Jack Flaherty going to the Orioles is way bigger than people are giving him credit for.
Yes.
That, first of all, that Orioles team is their clubhouse is like Christmas lights are up. It's a party in there. Like, everybody's having a great time in that clubhouse right now. Adley Rutschman, the sprinkler celebration, all that stuff. It's a party over there. And Jack Flaherty's a clubhouse guy. He's a high energy guy. He's outspoken. He'll talk to the media about what's going on. He had that, like crying about his numbers earlier in the season and stuff like that. That's because the guy cares. And on top of that, he may not be having a great season now, but he's also playing in an absolute mess of a Cardinals clubhouse with a terrible rotation, an underperforming lineup, a manager that really, I don't mean to take shots, but he doesn't really seem like he's got the best handle on what's going on. So I think he's going to show up in Baltimore and he's going to shove and he's going to make that team even better. And now they have a much more negotiable playoff rotation because they have a guy like Jack Flaherty in that 2 or 3 spot.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Definitely an underrated move. And I know I said it earlier with Lance Lynn as a change of scenery type of guy, but for all the reasons you said, Jack Flaherty is a change of scenery type of guy. And if you pull up Baseball Savant, you look at some of his percentile rankings. I mean, this guy is throwing heat and his extension's 93rd percentile. So what this means, folks, is for those of you who maybe are not familiar with extension and average exit velocity, he's in the 78th percentile of velocity. But when it comes to his extension at 83, when you're extending at 83, that means you're getting out in front of the mound at a greater distance, which means that 93, 95 mile an hour fastball really looks like 96 or 97, right? So, I mean, he's throwing heat, but as far as, him being able to throw guys out, chase rate's low. The expected batting average is so. His strikeout percentage is much lower than it's been in other years. He's missing something, but maybe the old Orioles can get their hands on him and twerk a couple things here and there to make him a formidable 2-3 starter for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right now, his ERA plus is 101. It has been all year. So he is right on that tipping point of whether he's going to be an impact guy or a replacement level player. His whip is up. It's at 1.522. So like he's getting traffic on the bases. And like you said, that comes with nobody chasing. People are taking walks against him, stuff like that. But I think that, right now his ERA is at a 4.28. The FIP is at the fielding independent pitching is at 4.08. So it's not that far off. He's not getting lucky or unlucky.
Yeah.
This is a mechanical or mentality change that really could benefit from a change of scenery. And I think that's what we're going to get from Jack Flaherty. I think he's going to push that Orioles team over the edge. And I think I at the beginning of the season, I had the Blue Jays winning the division. I don't think that's going to happen anymore, obviously. But like we're looking at a potential ALCS team, if not a World Series team from these Orioles.
I don't doubt it. Let me tell you what, they always say this to be true, and I believe it is. You got to get hot at the right time. And if they continue to stay hot and they roll into the playoffs playing this way, it's anyone's World Series to win, and it could very well be them.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
Love that. That's a great pick. My first pick as the most impactful trade deadline acquisition. This is one I was deciding between this one and the aforementioned Jack Flaherty trade. I'm going to go to the Cubs on this one. Okay. And this one, this one also didn't get much attention. And this was the Cubs acquiring third baseman Heimer Candelario from the Nationals. And they sent over minor leaguers, infielder Kevin Made and pitcher DJ Hurds. Made is the Cubs' 19th prospect. DJ Hurds, Cubs' 22nd prospect. Now, this is why this wasn't given much love, and this is why I'm going to give it some love. For a lot of the reasons that you, Parker, had mentioned with the Orioles, the Cubs have come out of nowhere and seemingly got hot, and they all of a sudden are creeping up in a very weak NL Central. If we go ahead and see where they're at right now, let me go ahead and make sure I get an updated standings here. So they are they are tied for the third wild card spot in the National League. And then if we look at where they're at in the division, they're right behind Milwaukee, 1.5 games, tied for second with Cincinnati. This was a team that at one point a month ago was 7-8 games out, if you could believe it. So what did they need? Where did they need to fill the holes? Well, the big holes for the Chicago Cubs were the hot corner, third base, and then the other corner, first base. Now, you can make the argument that Cody Bellinger has played well for them at first base, and he may be their first baseman for the rest of the year, which is a good spot to be in. But they've had this just unfillable black hole at third base. And when you look at what Candelario does, he is one of those underrated players just by a long shot. I mean, This is a guy that this season, his slash line, he's got 275, 359 on base, 504 slugging, 17 homers, 56 RBIs. Defensively, really solid. He's giving you a 3.88 defensive WAR, and he's a
90 outs above average.
90 outs. 90 outs. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And I'll give you one more, Parker. 138 OPS plus for Heimer Candelario. I mean, it would surprise people to see how well he's doing in 6 games with the Cubs up to this point. His slash line, this is going to make you just laugh. His slash line with the Cubs so far in 6 games. Now, of course, this isn't sustainable. Let's all calm down. But nonetheless, his slash line in 6 games, 571, 640, 905. What the hell?
That'll play. That'll play.
So to sum up, I'll just say this is the Cubs needed offensive reinforcements at a position of need, and wow, did they go out and get it for a 19th and a 22nd prospect in their system? Fantastic move.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially a Cubs team that really has not had to, is or will not have to worry about pitching come playoff time. They have their 3-man playoff rotation. They have a really good rotation that's just headlined by Marcus Stroman. They've got guys like their middle infield. They always say, right, be strong up the middle. Your middle infield being Dansby Swanson and Ian Happ, or is it Nico Horner? I'm stupid.
No, Nico Horner. You're good.
Yeah, Nico Horner. That's really good. That's a really good middle infield. They've got, Jason Hayward's doing his thing. Like you said, they've got Cody Bellinger. They're poised. They're poised. And this was the deal that kind of got it done for them because, like you said, there was that black hole at the left side of the infield at third base, which is wild because Patrick Wisdom for the first month of the season was the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah, he fell off a cliff, and he is like the prime strikeout home run guy. And I think that's where they were kind of like, all right, we can't have this guy playing every day. When you had other options like Chris Morel, who you see out there, a lot of highlight reels for Christopher Morel, who's more of your kind of Ben Zobrist everywhere type of guy. But well, I'm very excited being a Chicagoan. While I am a Sox fan, I'm not a Cubs hater, as you all know. And I want to see them be successful. And I think they're having an interesting run here going.
Yeah, no, that's a really good pick for your number 1 overall trade. No Scherzer mentioned.
No Scherzer, because I don't want to pay that much for a pitcher that I think is falling off the deep end. Just saying.
And also add him to an already good starting rotation.
Also, yeah, right. What an embarrassment of riches for the Rangers. I mean, come on.
It hurts so much because Nathan Eovaldi, okay, I don't blame the Sox for not bringing back Nathan Eovaldi. They offered him a better deal than he took with the Rangers. He turned it down. Then the Red Sox went on the market and realized how much money Xander Bogaerts was getting offered, and they had to make a counteroffer for Xander Bogaerts. At that point, Eovaldi came back and was like, I want in. I want to be back. I want to be a Red Sox. They were like, offers off the table, man. We don't have that money to throw around now because the Red Sox number 1 priority this season was to be as competitive as possible while staying under the luxury tax because they went over last year and they have not been able to recover. So after Nate came back and was like, hey, I want that same deal. It was off the table, which is wild because we just got over getting Eduardo Rodriguez, losing him.
Right.
And so that pitching staff that we had become accustomed to with the 2021 ALCS run, Eduardo Rodriguez and Chris Sale and Nathan Eovaldi, it's just not there anymore. So
no, I mean their rotation has been absolutely decimated. It's something they need to build rather quickly here. I mean, talk about so I'm gonna come back to the Red Sox here in a second. I think you're gonna like why. But Parker, you posed kind of 2 really interesting questions when we opened up talking about the trade deadline, and we'll wrap with these. You first prompted this question is what trade what player that wasn't traded were you surprised that they weren't traded? So, I mean, is there anyone that comes to mind for you as a player that was like, wow, I really thought they were going to be on the go and they stayed?
We might be on the same page for this one. Not gonna lie. But first of all, I was not surprised that Shohei Ohtani did not get traded. I think he should have. I think they probably should have just gotten a ton of young talent. I don't know that any team really was out there was going to give really what they could have for him. I don't know that any team wants to mortgage their entire franchise for 2 months of Shohei Ohtani. I was not surprised that he didn't get traded, but I could not believe that the Boston Red Sox didn't sell high on James Paxton.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really and here's why I'm even more surprised by that. I'm glad you brought him up because the fact of the matter was this trade deadline very thin on solid starting pitchers. I mean, this would have been the year to do that for them, to get maybe even a deal that the White Sox got. We're talking about AA, AAA pitchers. Jake Eater came back in that Jake Berger trade. That would have been a good guy for the Red Sox to have that can contribute opening day next year if they wanted to push him. I mean, it's just what a missed opportunity. Yeah,
and it really blew up in their face yesterday or a couple days ago. Whenever he just pitched next after the trade deadline, he got blown up. He didn't have a good start, and he had consistently good starts. And I'm pretty tied into Red Sox Twitter and listen to all the Red Sox podcasts and stuff like that. And everybody was pounding the table going, he's not going to stay healthy and he's not going to stay this good. You have to sell high on him. He's been very good this season up until this last start, basically. We did have like an injury. I remember it was like 2-3 months ago. It was in New York when we're playing the Mets. He came out of the game in like the 4th inning with a knee problem. Turned out it was just precautionary, but fires were lit. Everybody was like, get him out of here. Trade him right now before he actually ends up on the IL, because this is not good. We have had him on our 40 man for the last 3 seasons, 2020, 2021, and 2022. He has not pitched a single pitch up until this year in 2023 for the Red Sox. So, like, it was great what we got for him, but was he in anybody's plan at the beginning of the season? I don't think so.
No.
So, not getting rid of him, I think, is the biggest non-trade of the trade deadline.
Ooh, that's a really good one. And I'm going to stay on the same theme of pitchers that should have been moved given the market. And I'm going to come back to my hometown Chicago White Sox, because I do think Dylan Cease should have been moved. Okay. Now,
yeah,
I know. Okay. I'm so glad that you agree with me so emphatically, because here's the deal. Going back to my point with Paxton, the market for pitchers was there, and we just talked about the Orioles getting Flaherty. Great move. Okay. I agree. I think that helps their rotation. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care if the White Sox just didn't want to we're asking for an exorbitant price and we know they didn't meet it, or yada, yada, whatever that is. Can you imagine an Orioles team that got both Cease and Flaherty, and you imagine the return the White Sox could have got for a Cease? It was a match made in heaven, and I was so shocked it didn't happen.
I bet the call was made, and because it didn't happen, I don't see how the call's not made between the Orioles and the White Sox.
Oh,
but I would not be surprised if the White Sox wanted Jackson Holiday.
Correct, and there's no way in how they gave him up. It just doesn't happen.
No, I know that the asking price for there was a report that came out a couple days ago that the Red Sox rang the bell for Dylan Cease, and the asking price was Brian Bayo. And that was another one the Red Sox were like, no, we don't have it. And that's what I think those two are really good cases you can look at to see why Shohei Ohtani wasn't traded. Because like I said, there's no team that's like, yeah, give him everything. We'll just get 2 months of Shohei.
Correct.
We have a known quantity in Brian Bayo. The home run, the ball's flying out of the ballpark against him kind of recently, but like we have a known like number 2 guy for the like next 10 years, 5 years at least in Brian Bayo. I don't think you trade that for 2 years of control for Dylan Cease. Like there's no guarantee you bring him back after that.
Right.
He's been incredible. I mean, he's in the 95th percentile in fastball spin. Dylan Cease has. He's 79th percentile whiff rate. Like he's killing it. I just don't know. I think he's almost too good to have been traded to a team that I don't think any team that wanted to win right now today was going to go after Dylan Cease, because the asking price was so high. And then any team with a stocked enough farm system to trade for him, probably the asking price was probably names they were just too excited to see develop at the big league level.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, and I think that's exactly where the Orioles found themselves. Now, I mean, I guarantee you the White Sox, of course, were asking for Jackson Holiday, and of course that he was never going to be on the table. But I mean, if you look at this Orioles farm system, I mean, they have, I believe, at last count, 8 or 9 people in the top 100 as rated by MLB Pipeline. So, yeah. I mean, if you look at this list, if I'm Rick Hahn, I'm saying, okay, you're not going to give me Jackson, give me a Jordan Westberg, a Heston Kjerstad, and a Joey Ortiz. I mean, I'm still taking that deal. I mean, you mean to tell me there wasn't a combination of 3 of their top 10 that wouldn't have worked? Because I would have taken it.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but also I think they were good with the Jack Flaherty deal, because Dylan Cease was always going to be like a beat the clock kind of deal, like it was going to happen 5 minutes before the deadline. And they got the Jack Flaherty a couple hours before the deadline. And when you get that, like now you're even less inclined to trade away top prospects, guys like Jackson Holiday. I mean, I bet I wouldn't be surprised if they were asking for Brian Bayo in return for the Red Sox. I wouldn't be surprised if they were asking for Grayson Rodriguez from the Orioles.
Oh, sure. And so here's, I almost think that they probably were in serious discussions, as it was reported, with the White Sox for Cease, and that when they realized that the Sox were asking too much, they probably pivoted to Flaherty and locked him in real quick.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think it's a bad thing that the White Sox still have Dylan Cease.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, look, he's led off the season by just completely shutting down a not quite full strength Houston Astros team, but still, like, this guy's a very, very, very good pitcher. He's going to be around for at least a couple more years, especially a team like, and not to put salt in the wound, but a team that just said goodbye to guys like Carlos Rodon. You just traded away Lance Lynn. Like, it's not bad to have that guy to at least put meat in seats every fifth day.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So we'll take the small victories, folks. Over here in White Sox world, that's just we're trying to get by day by day. All right. So the next question that you posed, Parker, was a great one, and that is, which trade would you have liked to see that didn't happen?
So I'm more talking about my Boston Red Sox when I was thinking about this question. Because I really, and it is blown up. And again, with the James Paxton trade, it didn't happen. And it blew up in our face almost immediately. I can't believe that we didn't trade away Alex Verdugo.
That was the one I had. That was exactly the one I had.
Yeah. And like, I cannot believe he doesn't go at the deadline, especially. Well, I don't know if his disciplinary issues that have all of a sudden come to light in the last couple days are well known among baseball executives. I'm sure it's no secret.
Sure.
But because apparently it was a problem with the Dodgers. I don't know if maybe, I doubt the asking price was too high because he's been so cold since just before the All-Star break. I don't know. I don't know. He seems like he's not that big of a clubhouse guy as far as like, maybe the players love him, but it doesn't seem like it's like a grind now. I'm here to win day in, day out, 6 hours a day, every day. Like, it doesn't seem like that kind of an attitude from him. So I would have liked to get some return, especially with the emergence of Jarren Duran and how good he's been this year for the Red Sox. He's kind of taken over that spot, especially because he's so fast. He can actually play that right field in Fenway, which is basically another center field. Red Sox fans love to say we have to carry 2 center fielders. So yeah, I don't know. I won't say disappointed because I do really like and enjoy watching Alex Verdugo play baseball, but especially, hindsight's 2020, especially with the last couple days coming to light. I don't know. I don't see how he wasn't traded.
Agreed. I mean, it seemed like a great opportunity to do it given the circumstances, and this would have been the time. I expand that. When you asked me that question, I immediately thought of the Red Sox, and not only because just naturally, like, why not do anything? Like, why so quiet? Like, why you have these young players in and out of the lineup, up and down the lineup, where you could have even inserted a veteran position player in there, provide some guidance down the stretch, something. And they chose maybe is not the right word. You never know what was happening, what Heimblum was doing behind the scenes, but to come out of the trade line with really nothing, that's disappointing.
Yeah. And a lot of people are giving Heimblum a lot of flack for not trading Alex Verdugo and basically having a third straight deadline where almost nothing happened. I think there's 2 sides to this coin. Number one, yes, nothing happened. But number 2, he was probably making calls. It's his job. It's what he does. He walks into the office. He makes phone calls, seeing who wants his players. And the thing is with Heimblum, we have not one single time seen a blockbuster kind of trade. We haven't seen a gamble kind of trade. We haven't seen anybody we haven't traded away any major prospects or anything. I think he's very dead set on that Rays type mindset. Like, he came from the Rays of, we're going to build from the bottom and we're going to have a very strong farm system. The Red Sox farm system as of the last week is now ranked number 3 in baseball. It was number 30 when he took over in 2019 or in 2020. So like, he's probably very proud of the work he's done. I don't know that he has, I don't want to say the gall. I don't know that he has the gumption really to do to make a trade like that, anything like bring a Dylan Cease for any of your prospects or trade away a Verdugo in what can be considered a risky move. Like, I think he's just very content with sitting on our prospects, letting them develop, because really none of them have missed since he's been here. Jarren Duran eventually has so far panned out this season. Tristan Casas is lighting the world on fire. He was the rookie of the month last month. I think they're just really willing to wait for a guy like Marcelo Meyer, who they drafted a couple years ago and was supposedly the best player in the draft. I don't watch high school baseball, so I couldn't tell you. They have a guy named Roman Anthony, who in some lists is listed higher than Marcelo Meyer as far as MLB prospects. I think they're just waiting.
you bring up something I think is key with Heim Bloom, and that is I would sum it up as the risk aversion. I don't know that I think he is risk adverse. I mean, and you are used to, I mean, you know this in Red Sox history and GMs you've seen, your Theo Epsteins, your Dave Dombrowski's, those guys
Yes.
will make trades until they're blue in the face. And Sox fans are used to that. I think this is
Yes.
really getting a while for you and other fans to get used to this risk adverse Heim Bloom.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's growing up, you're always looking for like that move at the trade deadline, because as much as the Yankees love saying we're never in a rebuild and we're in it for the championship every year, the Red Sox fans love saying that too, but I think quieter. I think especially being the reality check we've gotten in recent years from like 2011 until now, finishing in last place so consistently and then randomly having a breakout season where you make a World Series run or you make a ALCS run. Every single time those type of seasons have happened, it has been on the backs of young homegrown guys that are making less than they probably deserve. Right. In 2013 that was written in the clouds. As soon as the Boston bombing happened, I should have put money on the Red Sox to win the World Series. It is what it is. I could have been playing shortstop for the Boston Red Sox, and I think we won the World
Series. Written in the stars, friends.
Yeah, exactly. But in 2018 is the number one thing. Like, there's Alex Spear of the Boston Globe wrote a book called Homegrown, and it was about how Mookie Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., Benintendi, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, all of these guys that came up through the Red Sox system were huge contributors to that championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the route that they want to take. It's actually incredible that a Dave Dombrowski team won a World Series with mostly homegrown guys. Granted,
Incredible.
they weren't his guys. They weren't his guys, like he didn't draft them, but
Sure.
Still, like, it's pretty nuts how that happens.
It sure is. That's incredible. I'll always think back to that team as being, it's funny because I had a conversation previously with a buddy of mine a couple years ago about that exact point where Dombrowski came in, inherited all these guys, made little to no large trades, and it's the only time in his career that's ever happened. So
yeah, the number one thing he did was extend Chris Sale, which is, it's been great.
Yeah, tell me how that's working out. Hello. That's awesome. Okay, so let's end. We're getting to the end of the show here, and I want to end how we're going to end every show here at Lineup Card. This is the first time we're doing this because it's the first Lineup Card episode. We're going to play a game called Hot Hand, and what we do here to wrap up each and every episode is generally, of course, it would be myself and Romanelli giving who we think is going to be the hot hand over the next 5 days. And of course, if we have a guest like Parker, he'll give us his hot hand as well. And so what we do is we will go ahead and pick the player who's going to have the best offensive week. And then the next week, we'll compare those stats and see who comes off on top for ultimate bragging rights. So just like a lineup card, how you put your hot hitter in the fourth spot or you pick the hot hand, we're going to pick some hot hands. Parker, who is your hot hand for the next 5 days in baseball?
I have two names. When you told me I had to do this, I have two names written down, and I literally up until this moment, I still don't know which one of those two I'm going to pick. But I am going to cheat because I have the benefit of already seeing the game happen, and it is Monday it's 9 p.m. Eastern time.
I'm so nervous you're going to pick my guy.
I'm going to pick Mookie Betts.
Damn it.
I picked Mookie Betts. He's already hit a home run this week. He's on fire. He's having maybe the best statistical season of his career. He's absolutely at home in Los Angeles. He's kicking off a pretty great podcast. If you haven't listened to it, Mookie Betts is my hot hand for this upcoming week.
Hey, isn't that crazy, folks? The first ever hot hand, and we're picking the same guy. I was so committed to Mookie Betts that I didn't even think of a second one. So shame on me. But here I will also say Mookie Betts, and we'll consider it a gentleman's agreement that we both win if he has a great week. But here's what I'll say about Mookie Betts and why I even went with him as the hot hand. First off, next two series for Mookie, at Arizona and then home against Colorado. Okay, two teams that not too sold on their pitching. And if you look at what Mookie Betts has done at home in Dodger Stadium against Colorado, he's batting .314 at home, .375 against Colorado, and .429 against Colorado at home. It's in the bag.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He's on fire. He is. It's so funny because, like I already said, that Mookie Betts is one of my favorite players. He always will be. I was so excited to see him in the home run derby this year, and he has been saying forever he doesn't like the idea of being in the home run derby. He's not a home run hitter. He's a line drive hitter.
Yep.
That's what every power hitter says. Sure. He did not
Right.
have a great showing there, but maybe he just avoided the home run derby curse by doing that. Maybe he was playing chess instead of checkers, and it seems to be paying off.
That seems to be definitely a Mookie thing to do. And I gotta say, while we're talking about Mookie, this little like romance going on between Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, I'm here for it. They're two buds, man.
Freddie was my second player that I couldn't.
Was he?
Yeah, Freddie was the other guy because first of all, if Ronald Acuna Jr. injures himself in the next week and somehow misses the rest of the season, not going to own right now. I hope it doesn't happen. I love Ronald Acuna Jr. Freddie Freeman's the NL MVP. Like Freddie Freeman is having an incredible season, and it's pretty nuts that him and Ronald Acuna Jr. are the two players that are like they've butted heads in the past a little bit, and now they're 1 and 2 for the NL MVP. Yeah, no, I think Freddie's also poised for a really solid week.
Absolutely. Good vibes. All good vibes there at Elysian Park. Hey, Parker, this was so fun to have you on the first episode of Lineup Card. It was great, and we are going to have you back to talk more Red Sox.
Absolutely. I'm totally down. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the first episode ever of the Lineup Card. Do not forget that you can subscribe to us on YouTube, where we do have our video podcast. So feel free to watch us there. Leave a comment, leave a review, please. Of course, you can find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify as well. And thanks for joining us. Make sure you leave a review. We really appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Make it a great week.